President Biden has said he would be willing to use force to defend Taiwan and that the US stands with other nations to make sure China cannot use force in the region. Speaking at a news conference in Tokyo, he added that China is flirting with danger in Taiwan by flying close to the island. Here he is speaking an hour ago.
The United States is committed. We've made a commitment. We support the one China policy. We support all that we've done in the past. But that does not mean that China has the ability, the jurisdiction to go in and use force to take over Taiwan. So we stand firmly with Japan and with other nations not to let that happen. And my expectation is it will not happen. It will not be attempted. And my expectation is a lot of it depends upon just how strongly the world makes clear that that kind of action is going to result in long-term disapprobation by the rest of the community.
Very quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made. That's the commitment we made. We are not, look, here's the situation. We agree with the one China policy. We've signed on to it and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, just taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine. And so it's a burden that is even stronger.
Well, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida spoke alongside Joe Biden at that news conference, and he said the two countries agreed to jointly deal with issues related to China.
We concur to monitor closely recent activities of Chinese Navy and joint military exercise of China and Russia, and strongly oppose the attempt to change status quo by force in East China Sea and South China Sea, and Japan and the United States to closely cooperate on responding to China-related issues, including human rights.
Let's go live now to our Tokyo correspondent Rupert Wingfield-Hayes. Rupert, welcome to you. Let's pick up on those comments from Joe Biden saying that the US would be prepared to step in militarily if Taiwan was invaded by China. In the past few minutes, we've had clarification from the White House saying there is no change in US policy towards Taiwan. What do you make of it?
Yes, well, as I said last hour, I expected the US, somewhat part of the US government would start walking those comments back pretty quickly, and that indeed is exactly what's happened. They've said there's no change to the one China policy or to America's long-term commitment to helping Taiwan to defend itself. So that is the official US position. The US has always had, since 1979, since it dropped recognition of Taiwan and recognized the People's Republic of China, it has maintained this thing called the one China policy. That's the formula they came up with in order to establish relations. And it's always been a very uncomfortable position for the American government because it obviously has a great deal of feelings for the people of Taiwan, and it is a democracy, it is a friendly to the West. So Joe Biden is today, if you like, is sort of unilaterally declaring, it looks like, an end to that one China policy. I mean, he hasn't, but effectively what he has said is we would intervene militarily if China unilaterally tries to stop or change the status quo. And I think, essentially what President Biden is saying is there is an international status quo, there is a rules-based order, and it is not acceptable for any country, whether it be Russia or China, to unilaterally use military force to try and change that status quo. And that's why he says Russia has to be punished. And that's why he's saying no to Beijing, no to China. You should not even think about contemplating this. It is not acceptable. And we will, with our allies, stop you from doing so.
Yeah, and very much the focus of these talks is this new Asia-Pacific Trade Pact. Just tell us how that will work and how important that is.
Yeah, so I think you have two things here. You have that very narrowly focused territorial dispute between China and America and its allies Taiwan, the East China Sea, the South China Sea. And then you have this much broader issue, which is Chinese influence as opposed to American influence in the world. And what's been happening in the last 5 years or 10 years is that China's influence has been growing. China has been investing a lot of money, a lot of resources in developing relations with countries all over the world. It's Belt and Road Initiative, spending tens of billions on infrastructure around the world. And this is making America and its allies, like Australia and Japan, somewhat uncomfortable, and particularly in places like the Pacific, where small Pacific states are being won over by China because China is coming in and offering loans and assistance in a way that America and Australia have not been. And I think America and Australia and Japan have been somewhat caught short by this, especially over a recent agreement between China and the Solomon Islands. And so this new initiative is really to try and win back the initiative and offer an alternative to China, to these small developing countries across the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, and say, hey, look, we can be your partner. We can offer you technology, assistance, medical supplies, vaccines, digital security, all sorts of things. Come to with us, or stick with us. Don't go off and become closely tied to China. That's not in your interests.
And Rupert, America's relations with its Asian allies has been pretty rocky over the past few years, but Joe Biden very much couldn't have been stronger in his commitment to Japan and how important the relationship is, could he?
Very much so. I mean, the atmosphere is very, very warm. This is a very warm welcome for an old friend. The years of Donald Trump's presidency were very rocky. He came out here, imposed sanctions on Japanese goods, demanded that Japan pay much more for US troops to be stationed here, and really, I think shook the foundations of the alliance with Japan and Korea. And really, people here started to question, well, how committed is America in the long run to our security? Joe Biden is a very, very different personality and is an old foreign policy expert going all the way back to the 1970s. And, he has come here and made it very, very clear that this alliance is stronger than ever. And I think in the light of Ukraine, actually, this has given a real boost to the sense that America and its allies this is a very, very important relationship. Both NATO in Europe, but also the Japan-U.S. alliance is really the bedrock of U.S. relations in this part of the world.
OK, Rupert, for now, thank you.